in so much. Just absolutely awesome. Well, and we have a second, I think, very special treat. I think that was one, and I think the second one is our Advocate for Academic Freedom Award. And this year it's Rob Miller. It is really an honor to introduce him and to have him as our recipient. He is a Jinx Middle School principal. He's been in education for 21 years. Prior to that, he served 10 years in the Marine Corps. And I sort of imagine that his Marine Corps training has prepared him well for work with middle school students and possibly the state superintendent. He's very well known to many of you that follow his blog, A View from the Edge. His blog reflects his sense of humor. It's combined with a realistic view of what's happening. And I want to use his own words in his post. Quote, relative to state and national education issues, particularly related to the misguided and destructive efforts of the so-called education reformers who seek to capitalize on the dismantling of public education through the establishment of for-profit entities. So if you haven't read his blog, I really encourage you to do so. And even though his blog and his actions as principals have expressed passion and concern for what's going on, it hasn't been done without repercussions for him. Again, in his blog, remarks addressing the state superintendent, and I quote, I know you were a little PO'd last April when 800 parents from Jinx Middle School took a stand and decided to opt their children out of the OCCT field test. You were actually so mad that you called my superintendent within 24 hours to demand an investigation into the incident. You also accused me of violating several state testing procedures without a single shred of evidence, I might add. Your exact words were, I just know Rob Miller had something to do with this. End quote. Well, Rob, we here at OEA know that there are a lot of things in public education advocacy that you've had something to do with, and we choose to honor you for it. So with that,
Linda, thank you very much, and all the delegates of the Oklahoma Education Association. I cannot tell you how honored I am and how humbling this really is, and how emboldening this is to the fight that we're all continuing to make. Now, I told Linda this when she called me a few weeks ago, that it is always dangerous to give me a microphone. You never know what I might say, but I will keep my remarks relatively short today. I know that lunch is coming up soon, right? Oh, you're not going to feed them? No, please. That won't work. But I do want to spend just a couple minutes talking about why I have so much passion for this, and why this is such an important battle for all of us to engage in. Now, I'll say first of all, just looking out over this crowd, I can understand why our state superintendent is reluctant to come here. This is just a scary looking group of people. They really are. Just look around now. Seriously, how ridiculous is that? That's not the way it should be. Our state superintendent of public instruction should not be afraid to come, should be eager to come to speak to the leaders of our state. Our state superintendent of public instruction should be a cheerleader for our teachers and not take every opportunity to belittle, demean, and disparage the great. And superintendent of public instruction should be our lead advocate for schools and teachers, not our primary adversary. We have to take back the narrative. And that's why I have started a blog, and that's why I am so outspoken, because the narrative for the last 20 years has been controlled by the reformers. And we need to take it back, seize it back, so that we're telling the real story of what's going on in our schools. All the reforms that have taken place over the last 20 years, since No Child Left Behind and its stepbrother on steroids Race to the Top, is predicated on the false premise that schools are failing. That Oklahoma schools are failing, American schools are failing. In fact, last night, one of our state representatives actually said that during a debate over Senate Bill 573, which is the charter schools bill that was defeated. But that's ridiculous. We're not failing. And furthermore, there's this false premise that you and I, as administrators and teachers, are not sufficiently motivated to do anything about it, that administrators are overpaid, that teachers are lazy, we're uncaring, and all we want to do is protect our status quo. That's a load of crap. So what we need to do is change that narrative, because that is what predicates everything that's happening in education today. And they have turned our whole structure into chaos. We've gone into this rabbit hole of insanity, and we've got to dig our way out. It is my fervent hope that all of us together, teachers and parents and administrators and legislators eventually, will wake up. And one day that we will wake up and realize that a standardized test is a terrible way to measure the potential of a human being. If we are really serious about improving public education in our state and in our country, we must first address effectively the crippling effects of poverty and inequality, especially in our cities. And most of all, we need to put our money where our mouth is, and we need to invest in our classrooms, in all of you, in our classroom teachers. If we're going to follow the international model that they say we're falling behind, Finland and Singapore and China, we need to elevate the teaching profession to the status that it belongs. We need to make sure that teachers are compensated at a fair wage that allows a teacher to raise a family with a professional wage and compensation. We need to make sure that our schools of teacher preparation are the best in the world. We need to make sure that every teacher, when they show up at a school, is met with a caring and compassionate and competent mentor to guide them through those first few years. We need to make sure that our professional development is rich and robust and meets the needs of every teacher to pursue mastery in whatever their field is. We need to make sure that we provide time for collaboration so that teachers can work together to share best practices, to share assessments, and to improve education for children. We need to restore trust in you. And then at that point, as administrators, we need to have the courage and wisdom to get the hell out of your way and let you teach. That is how we improve education. And that's why I'm so passionate. I will continue to be an advocate for public education until they pry my iPad out of my old dead hands. And this is for Superintendent Barisi. I'll be damned if I'm going to sit back and allow her and Jeb Bush and Arnie Duncan and Michelle Rhee and all of the other reformers lose another generation of our children to their foolishness. Have one more thought. I told you. I want to remind you of a movie, Good Will Hunting. There's a scene at the end of that movie that is extremely poignant and powerful. And I think as educators, we need to remind ourselves of the message. And the scene is when Robin Williams is holding the folder that has Matt Damon's history. His history of abuse and neglect, and all the things that have happened to him in the history. And he looks him in the eye and he says, "It's not your fault." He says, "I know. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. You need to know that all of the things that they say are happening in public education today are not your fault. In fact, public education is the only thing holding together the fragile structure of many of our cities and our culture. It's the hard work of you, and they should be celebrating what you're doing, not condemning it." Thank you very much. This is just the start of a journey for me in terms of advocating for public schools. I look forward in battling with you for our kids, for our teachers, for our schools. Thank you for everything.
Wow, if we could just think of a way to clone him, wouldn't that be awesome? We just need a whole lot like him. All right, throughout today and tomorrow, we have the opportunity to hear from some different candidates. We invited the Democratic and the Republican candidate for governor to come. We had one candidate that accepted, which was Joe Dorman. We've also extended an invitation to all the candidates that are running for the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. We have 5 of those here. We had 2 that did turn us down. Superintendent Marisi turned us down, and we never heard back from the newest candidate that filed, Brian Kelly from Edmond. But the other 5 will be here at various times during today and tomorrow. They've each been given about 10 minutes to speak. It is not going to be a time for question and answers. It is just a time for them to tell you, because as the leaders in our association, we want you to hear from each of the candidates. And we are very, very lucky to get to start today with Joe Dorman. He is a gubernatorial candidate who's currently serving as the state representative for our friends in Rush Springs, Grady, Caddo, Comanche, Cotton, and Stevens counties. His gubernatorial platform includes education, bipartisanship leadership, health care, public safety, and creating more jobs and a strong economy. I might add that he joined us for a little event we had on March 31st at the Capitol, and we were so glad that he was there with his focus. So please welcome Representative Joe Dorman.
First off, I want to thank all of you, Linda, Leila, all the rest of you, for allowing me to be here today. I don't want to know what it is about these politicians that don't want to show up and visit with you. It seems to be a recurring event. March 31st, I thought we had a fantastic time at the Capitol. elected officials didn't want to be there to visit with you. Now, I won't mention any names like Mary or Janet, or going down the list of the legislators, that those of you that were lucky to make it into the building, you were greeted by their signs that said out to lunch. Well, I know that's literally and figuratively with some of them, but last speaker was exactly right. We need new leadership at the Capitol. We need leadership that will be responsive to the needs of our citizens, to all Oklahomans, because we do not see that at the Capitol right now. I was proud to be there last night and vote against Senate Bill 573. So we have a long line of legislation that we've seen over the last 3 years that we have needed a stronger defense and more opposition to the agenda that's been pushed by Mary Fallon, Janet Parisi, and the legislative leadership that are forcing these programs down your throats. It's time we got the politicians out of the classroom and let the teachers do their job in the classroom. Now I want to tell you a little bit about myself, for those who don't know me. I have been a state representative the last 12 years from the area that was mentioned, my hometown of Rush Springs. I grew up there. My mom was a special needs teaching assistant, so I got to see the ins and outs of what happens in the classroom quite a bit. And I was one of those that I was fortunate. I received a public education. I'm proud of my public education. And I'm proud of all those teachers that were there to inspire me to set my sights high. One of the things that I don't usually talk about in speeches, and it's nothing that embarrasses me, it's just something you really hardly ever bring up. In 5th grade, I had a speech impediment. And I was diagnosed. They put me on an IEP. And Jane Porter, my speech teacher, helped me overcome that and helped me get where I'm at today. That is what we need for teachers, the ones that have the opportunity to work with their students and not be bogged down by unnecessary tests that are lumped on you, and especially tests that fail in the middle of the application. How many of you got to suffer through that? Back-to-back years. Well, I heard that one of the people that's responsible for that was outraged. Well, let's see if she and her board put their outrage to the proper function and eliminate that. Let's see if they will do the right thing. Because you know, it is an election year, and too often these politicians try to do the right thing in an election year and then pull the wool over the eyes of people the rest of the time, the other 3 years. But I will tell you, this is a year teachers are not going to forget what has been done to them, especially over the last 3 years. We need bipartisan leadership that will work with the Democrats and the Republicans who are trying to do the right things at the Capitol. We have seen legislation that has been forced down our throats, that's been drawn up by ALEC, Jeb Bush and his programs all across the nation, and that is only accomplishing the goal of making these testing companies richer and richer, and our students have less opportunities, less chance to learn, and less opportunity to achieve their highest potential. When did our state legislature and our governor forget the goal is to get these kids the opportunity to achieve their highest potential? Not some false standard that's put in place where we have to measure up to other states. We need to give these kids, whether they're going to go to college, someday be a doctor or a lawyer, if they're going to go to career tech and earn a certification, or they're going to go into the military or go straight into business, they deserve an opportunity to achieve their highest potential. And no politician creating a one-size-fits-all program out of the Capitol is going to help that. We cannot box these students into one overall demographic that we feel they need to achieve through policy that is shaped by politicians. That's unacceptable. None of us grew up under that, and I think all of us in this room turned out just fine. One of the inspirations I have for office, and one of the persons I hope to emulate in office, was a fellow named Henry Bellman, a Republican governor who worked with a Democratic legislature to accomplish goals, and I think his top achievement was the reforms that we saw under House Bill 1017. And those reforms over the last 3 years have been systematically decimated by this legislature and Mary Fallon. We need a leader that will institute restrictions on class size. We need a governor that will veto any bill that lumps further mandates on you. And most importantly, we need a champion of the Capitol that will treat you with the dignity and respect you have earned and you deserve by giving you a pay raise, a pension you can count on, and staying out of your business as you try to educate the future generation. It is unacceptable that our teachers are 49th in the nation for pay, and that our per pupil spending is at 22.8%, the largest reduction in spending of any state in the nation. We hear time and again the rhetoric out of the Capitol. We've given more money to education than any time in history. But when you do the numbers, when you do some of that simple math you might have actually learned from public schools, you can figure out that we are not treating our schools fairly, we're not giving our teachers the resources they need, and our students are not receiving that opportunity to achieve their highest potential. I'm going to keep going back to that again and again. It's all about their potential, not about testing numbers. Now, as I told you, a few of the things that I'm going to champion, hopefully as your candidate for governor, will be to eliminate the unnecessary testing, especially those high-stakes tests that are used to measure not only our students but our teachers. And I will point out, those of you that haven't heard the news, let me be the person that gives you a little bit of a good sign for the future. Tennessee yesterday repealed their measurements on testing, comparing that with teacher performance. So let me tell you, it is possible, and it is cited in argument. It is all due to the efforts of the Tennessee Education Association. So don't let anyone ever tell you you don't have influence and you have a voice at that Capitol. You do, and they were scared that you came to that Capitol. They are afraid of you. But you have to give them a reason to be afraid of you. And you know what that means? That means going to the ballot box in November. On November 4th, showing up and telling those people, the experts up there that are gauging the races, that we are going to make a difference this year. We're going to elect some common sense leadership that will stand up for the people who are living paycheck to paycheck. How many of you knew that there was a pay raise bill passed a couple of years ago that gave Mary Fallon's best friend a $40,000 pay raise at over at the Department of Tourism? How many of you would like to earn $40,000? We've got to increase per pupil spending. We have to end the overcrowded classrooms. We have to fully fund remediation programs to give those kids the potential and the chance to succeed. And last but not least, we've got to give you the salary you deserve, the pension you deserve, and again, the dignity you deserve. I'm asking you to please, on November 4th, give me the opportunity to serve as your governor, as the next governor of the great state of Oklahoma. I promise you, I will never hide from you. You show up at the Capitol, I will be there to visit with you. I will be your champion and your voice when it comes to the policies passed by the legislature. And I will make you proud. But I need your vote, I need your support, I need your help. My website is joedorman.com. JOEDORMAN. I'm all over Twitter and Facebook. But we need to start the fire. We've got to spread the message. You need to tell your fellow teachers and people in your communities, I can only do this with your help. I need you. But if you help me, I promise you I will be there for you. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for Secretary of Schools. It's going to be a fun 6 months.